welcome to episode number 25 of When to Play. And today we are going to be talking about a big, heavy game called City of Iron. This was a Kickstarter project that I backed. I didn't know anything about the company, Red Raven Games, or the designer, Ryan Laukat. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but Ryan is the designer of the game as well as the artist of the game. And it's a big, thick game, and I didn't know anything about the designer or about the company, but the game seemed very interesting to me, so I backed it, and I'm glad I did. The first thing you're going to notice about this game is the artwork. I love the artwork here is just really good. The painterly landscapes and cityscapes in this game are just really fantastic. It really appeals to me. It may appeal to you as well. Now, the characters in the game I'm not fond of. I don't think they really fit. I'm turning into an art critic here because I really enjoy art, and I don't think the characters, the cartoony kind of characters, really fit with these rich, textured, painterly backdrops that exist in the game. The characters are they look like they're kind of pasted on cartoon. So I don't like that so much, but you might really like that style. This is just a personal opinion. Any opinion on art is going to be a personal thing. But the lushness of these background images in this game make up for it tenfold. The artwork and the design, the graphic design in the game is really well done. So that's the first thing you're going to notice about City of Iron. The second thing City of Iron really has going for it is the component quality. The component quality here is it's superb all the way around. You've got a bunch of these nice double-sided land boards. The board itself is huge, and it's really, again, the illustrations here, I've got to try and open this board so you can see it. Really just well done board. You can see how rich that scenery is on the top there. But it's a kind of glossy, thick, very sturdy board. Folds really easily, very nicely done. The board, each player, there are 4 different races in the game that you can play, and they each have their own player board. Here's one of them here. The only graphic design complaint I have in this whole game, I think the iconography was well thought out and really well done. I think the design all the way around is great, except on these player boards. The cards, you can see here, this is where you're going to put your decks. There's a deck building element in this game, and you have basically 2 decks that you can build by purchasing cards to add to your decks. One is a military deck, indicated here by this gun symbol, and one is a citizen deck, represented by this watch symbol here. But when you put your cards on here, they blend in perfectly with the background, so it's hard to tell if you even have cards there sometimes. So that's really my only complaint at the graphic design. I think they should have made these backgrounds on these player aids a different color or distinguished them somehow, so they were more different than the card backs themselves, because it's kind of, when you place them down, it's like camouflage. They just disappear. The rulebook, very nice, again, quality, glossy rulebook, fully illustrated throughout, really well done, the graphic design wise. There is a quick start guide, which is very much appreciated. This game is a little bit more on the complex side, and I will talk about that a little bit. Now, the rulebook, Brian is obviously a very talented artist, graphic designer, a very talented game designer, but I don't think he's the best rules writer. I don't know if he wrote the rules or if he farmed out the rulebook to somebody else, but the rules serve their purpose, and you can learn how to play the game from this rule set, but they are kind of clunky, and it's going to take you a while to get through them all, and it is a pretty rules-intensive game, and the flow of the rules, it's going to take a little work on your part to understand this game. It wasn't until my 3rd game, maybe the 4th game I played, that I really was confident that we were playing it right. The first few games, there were things we did wrong because we misinterpreted or missed something. So the rules are not the best, but they're not horrible either. They suffice. Let's just put it that way. Another thing I'll say before I get into the gameplay of this game is it is fiddly. There are a ton of pieces in this game. You've got your main player board. You got every player has their own the main game board. The players have their own player boards, 4 different races. Then there's a ton of these land tiles. Every player is going to start with one of these land tiles, but you're able to gain more of them during the game. So these have to be on the table. Then there's a ton of money and science tokens that you've got to punch out and put in the game. Then every single player has district tokens, 2 different decks of cards that they have to separate between citizens and military, and then they have to take out their starting hands for their starting decks for those two different decks, and that's 2 cards each. So you got to go through the cards and separate them and make sure that's ready before you play. Then each player has cubes that they're going to mark on a ton of different resource spots on the main game board. So every player has different color wooden cubes as well. And then there's the building cards. There's a bunch of these building cards. They're going to allow you to build buildings on the board, but they're separated into 3 different decks with a scoring card at the end of each of those decks. So you've got to make sure you separate all those to have it set up right. So the setup is kind of intensive in this game, and as you can see here, it's just a lot of stuff, and it's gonna take a little time to set it up, and it's gonna take a little time to break it down. Now, obviously, once you learn the game, you'll learn what makes sense. And I actually lent this game to a friend, and I hadn't opened it since I lent it to him, and he actually packaged every race for me in these bags, and he gave me a little plastic box here to separate all my coins by 10s and 1s and 5s and science. So Daniel, thank you. I didn't even know you had done this until I opened it for this review, and I could kiss you. My goodness, that was very nice. Now, I just recently did an etiquette video on board gaming. That goes over and above. If somebody lends you a game and you do something like Daniel did and organize their game for them and add little plastic boxes and stuff, that's really cool. So thank you. But the point is, there's a lot of pieces in the game. It's a substantial game. It's going to take a while to set up. It's going to take a while to learn. So, with that being said, when do you play City of Iron? Don't play it with your parents or your non-gamer friends or your grandparents. It's not for that. If you are a Euro gamer, you're going to love this game, I think. I love this game. I have some other friends who really love this game. We did have a guy that actually inspired the etiquette list I just did, because he came and left. We were 3/4 of the way through our first game of City of Iron, and he didn't like it for some reason and got up and left. And that kind of inspired my etiquette list. But since I've played it a few more times since then, the people I've played it with have really enjoyed this game. Especially if you've got people in your group that don't like Euro games, they don't like getting resources to cash them in for victory points. If that kind of thing, I know there are people like that just don't like games like that, then they're not going to enjoy this game. But if you enjoy Euro games, if you enjoy managing your resources, if you enjoy collecting different resource types and trying to gain control for victory points, then this is a game that offers a lot of depth that I think you're going to like very much. Now, the theme here in City of Iron is very unique, and it's a big plus in this game. It's not based on any intellectual property. It's nothing like you've seen before. It's a little bit steampunky. It's kind of these alien worlds and maybe these alien races, but it's got this kind of this steampunk feel to it. And the resources that you're trying to collect here are just really cool. They're like things like turnips and some kind of sheep-like animal, and there's moss and tentacles and bottle demons, and just a real unique wide array of resources that you're trying to get. And you're trying to get these resources in a couple different ways. One way is by building a building that will give you those resources. And you do that by spending science and spending money. And you gain money by during an income phase. And you're going to, as you get these resources, you can see here there's these tracks on the main board that you're going to mark with your cube. So if I get 2 turnips by building a building, I am going to put my cube on the turnip track, and it's going to be set to 2. So that shows everybody I've got 2 on that turnip resource track. Now whoever has the most of a resource during a scoring round, and the scoring rounds are going to come up 3 times during the game, they are going to get victory points. Whoever is in second place on that resource is going to get victory points, but less. And you're also going to get money for having the most in a particular resource. And the money and the science here is, it always feels like it's hard to get and you never have enough, and you've really got to think about what resources you need to go for. Do you really want to compete with another player who's really set on getting tentacles, for example? Maybe it's better for you to give up the tentacles and go for the gears, because they're going to give you more points anyway, and maybe nobody is really fighting over that resource yet. So there's really a ton of options for how you play the game and how you're going to score points and the strategies that you take. All right, so, but your buildings are limited by your lands, right? So some of the buildings, each land has a different element types up here that a building card has to have on it. You've got to have it on your land, or you can't even build that building. So that's another thing to think. The cards that come up, and you're going to put up a bunch of building cards on the board at the beginning of every turn, and sometimes those buildings you're not going to be able to build because you don't have that type of land. Oh, but you can get land as well. You can get land by spending the distance. You'll see there's distance here on the land, and you can go after land with cards. And the cards that you have have little symbols on them. It could have that's a distance symbol. Then there's a little hammer symbol here, and you've got 2 kinds of cards. You've got citizen cards that have this yellow background, and these other cards that have a green background. These are the citizen cards, and the military cards have this yellow background. And so what they're going to do is they're going to do all kinds of things. They're going to let you, tax your people and get more money. Or they may let you add or collect more science, or give you more distance so you can go after lands that expand how many different building types you can grab. The military cards will let you go after towns. There are town cards that are double-sided. And say this town card here, you can see it's got 2 turnips on the top. It would cost me 1 distance, and it's got a defense of 1. So I would have to play a military card that has an attack of at least 1, but I would have to discard a card that has at least 1 distance to be able to conquer this particular town. If I conquer it, I grab it, and I get the reward here. I get 2 turnips on that turnip resource track. Once I conquer it, I flip the card over, and now as a conquered town, it's harder for other players to conquer. So its defense and distance might go up. So other players can take your town from you, but it's going to be more difficult for them. So that adds another element too. So you can go after towns, you can build your military to go after towns to get resources. You can build more of an economic engine to build buildings to get resources and collect money. You can really go with your citizen deck to build up the citizens that you have available to you. So you can do all kinds of, collect more money, collect more science, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different paths that you can take in this game. So if you like if you like a lot of options in a game, then I think you're going to like this game a lot. Now it's also got this deck building element in it. You're going to start with just 2 citizen cards, and you're going to start with just 2 military cards. But at the end of every round, you're going to have an opportunity to buy more cards that are in these pre-made decks. So if you've got the money and the science available, if you've earned enough, you can spend them to buy these cards that are going to give you more options to build your engine, whether it's a military engine or a citizen engine, or if it's a you want to build buildings, or maybe you want a balanced strategy where you're going to build buildings and get more lands and get towns. So it's really the way everything fits together. It takes a little while to sink in, but once it does, it's just really, it's a great experience. The artwork makes it immersive. The options available to the players are varied and many, and it's a good experience. And it doesn't take that long to play. It's taken us about 2 hours, but I think we're getting faster. And as we play the game more, I think what it says on the box is 90 minutes. I think that is definitely plausible for this game. And for that amount of time to have the kind of rich experience this game gives is a very good thing indeed. So I've got a good impression on this game, even though I had some difficulty understanding it, even though we had that very bad first game experience. I thought there was something here and we kept playing it, and I think there definitely is. All right, so let's look at some of the ratings that people have given City of Iron on Board Game Geek so far. Now, it already has, this game was just released, and it's already got 100 ratings on Board Game Geek, so that's means that there's a lot of people out there playing this game right now. And there's I see the lowest score I see right now is a 4. And Chuck says, I just don't get deck building type of games. The strategies are opaque to me, outside of just trying to get some quality cards in the deck and trying to get them cycled. Past that, being anal enough to order the cards properly is way too precise. Now, I didn't mention that, but yes, once you finish you go through your deck of cards, you flip them back over and go through them again in the same order. You don't shuffle them up. I kind of like that because when you're building your deck and they're ordered, you know what's going to come up once you flip them back over, right? So I kind of like that in this game. Now, if you don't like deck building games, then you're not going to like that part of this game. You're not going to, if you don't like deck builders, there's definitely a deck building element in this game. But you have to work to get the resources to purchase those cards to add to your deck. But the other great thing about this game is I think you can even, and I'm going to have to play with the strategy more, but I think you could even ignore the deck building element of this game. I think you could go all military if you wanted. I think you could go all citizens if you wanted building your decks. I think you could do a balance between the two, or I think you could ignore them altogether and just earn your resources to buy building cards, right? And to capture, well, you can't capture towns without military, so you'd need to get into your decks to do that. But you may be able to really not do a limited amount of the actual cards and still do pretty well in this game. I'm going to have to explore those different strategies. But to me, the depth is definitely there. And so Chuck doesn't really offer anything in that comment, but that he doesn't like, deck building games. Then we've got number 5 by Joel, who is a pretty well-known reviewer. He says, rules ambiguities, dry, methodical. The entire last half of the game is anticlimactic. You just kind of do everything. There's no real strategic paths or any meaningful tactical decisions. The art and graphical design are outstanding. So I'm glad he agrees with me on the art and graphical design. And I also agree with him with rules ambiguities. I don't think the rules are the best here, but you can get through it if you give it a little bit of time and a couple games. You're going to understand the rules. I disagree with him, though, on no real strategic paths or meaningful tactical decisions. There definitely is. You've got to think about what other players, what resources they're going after, how you can compete with them for a specific resource. Maybe you're going to abandon fighting them over a resource and go for something different. You can choose to go military. You can choose to take their towns from them. You can choose to expand and grab more land so you have more options on the buildings that you can build. You need to develop science. You need to earn science resources and money resources to be successful. So there's a ton of strategic paths in this game and decisions. So Joel, I don't know how you were playing the game, but it's totally opposite of what I experienced when I play it. But everybody's different. Everybody has different ideas of what they like. But I agree with him on rules ambiguities, and I agree with him that the graphic design and art is outstanding. But I say that there is a lot of strategic depth in this game. Joel doesn't think so. Now, some people who rated this high. Let's see what some people say. Chris says, amazing game, rated a 9. Lots of choices and very tight gameplay. Every choice matters and scales from 2 to 4 extremely well. Also, Daniel gave it a 9. Says, easily Ryan's best game yet. Lots of avenues to victory and tons of options to juggle with only a few actions per round. So here's Daniel and Chris, who more agree with me, opposite of what Joel said, that they think there's a lot of avenues to victory here and a lot of strategic decisions to make. And I think the theme, too, I think the theme really comes through well, even though the theme is nothing you've ever seen before. It's this alien kind of steampunk lands with this beautiful artwork representing different kinds of environments. It's just very cool to look at. It's very fun to play. However, like I said, the game is fiddly. You might have to struggle through the rules a little bit. But if you're willing to do that and put a little bit of time in to understand this game and learn the rules, and you like resource management, kind of Euro games, you definitely have to try City of Iron. It's definitely something you have to try. And you may find yourself running out to buy it if you do. So I'm Robert Burke. I hope this review has been helpful for you. This was my review on City of Iron by Red Raven Games. And I'll be back soon with episode number 26. Thanks. Bye. Hey again. Sorry, I wanted to let you know that I'm going to be gone for a couple weeks. I'm going on a vacation to Europe with my family, so I won't be having episode 26 out. It won't be that soon. It'll at least be 2.5 or 3 weeks until I have another episode out. But please watch some of the older episodes, and if you have any comments or suggestions on the type of reviews I'm doing, I'd love to hear from you. So please, any kind of suggestions that you have are more than welcome. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll be back in a couple weeks. Bye.